It's a week 6 NFC South showdown between the Panthers and Falcons in Uptown Charlotte. It's a Locked On NFL crossover Thursday here on Locked On Panthers and Locked On Falcons.
You are Locked On NFL crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers and Locked On Falcons podcast. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can listen to our shows and watch our shows every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Subscribe or follow our shows for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And today is Locked On NFL Crossover Thursday, presented by our friends over at PrizePicks. Download the app and use code Locked On NFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. I'm Julian Council, the host of Locked On Panthers. He is Aaron Freeman, the host of Locked On Falcons. And man, Aaron, 2 weeks in a row, the Falcons pull one out of their derriere and find a way to win, both against divisional opponents. Will they do it again on Sunday here in Charlotte? How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. You know, the football gods usually don't smile on the Atlanta Falcons in late game situations, and they have the last 2 weeks. You know, I'm as a longtime Falcon fan, I'm waiting for that shoe to drop at some point. I don't know if it's going to happen this Sunday against the Carolina Panthers, but I'm enjoying it while it lasts.
Yeah, you should enjoy it. I turned both of those games off thinking, there's no way they come back and win this game, especially on Thursday. And even when the catch was made, I'm like, no, like, what are you doing, Tampa? You're just going to let him carve through you like that? Kirk Cousins was outstanding. That was an excellent game. And I think in this game that we're going to break down here over the next 30 minutes, we're going to have a lot of points potentially on Sunday, because both of these defenses have been hellacious through the first 5 weeks of the season, in particular, the Panthers defense. Let's focus on the Falcons, though. They're the road team. Looking at that offense, coming off of a franchise record 509 passing yards from Kirk Cousins. What is the biggest story heading to this week 6 matchup between the Falcons and the Panthers, or the Falcons offense?
Can it continue? Can they continue to trend in the right direction? It was a bit of a slow start for Kirk Cousins, but as you mentioned, things really sort of came together for them last Thursday against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Not expecting Kirk to throw for 500 every single week, but they were explosive last Thursday, really for the first time this season. In the first 4 weeks of the season, I noted that it was the lowest number of explosive plays in terms of like 20-plus yard plays that the Falcons offense had generated since I've been tracking that, going all the way back to 2010. And then they exploded literally for 8 of those explosive plays against the Bucs defense, a very good Bucs defense. And that's the most that the Falcons have had in a single game since they played the Panthers, way back in 2018, when I think it was
that the Julio Jones game?
It was I know it was the game that Taylor Heineke started. There was the one Taylor Heineke start for Carolina back then. So it's one of those things. Going up against this Panthers defense, as you mentioned, Julian, is very suspect. Can the Falcons continue to generate some of these explosive plays as other offenses have done these last couple of weeks against this Carolina offense? And if that's the case, then this Falcons offense will continue to go on track, and hopefully, we'll continue to see a great Kirk Cousins, Kirktober, where he plays his best football in the month of October. Already won Offensive Player of the Week in 1 week. Can he get 2 in a row?
Yeah, I think the 2018 game you mentioned with Heineke starting, that was like a week 16 game in Charlotte. The 2016 game, I believe, was actually the Julio Jones game. Yes. That was a massacre of the Panthers secondary. And I know a lot of Panthers fans. Yeah, I know a lot of people, at least here in Charlotte, are hoping that's not what we're going to see on Sunday. I don't think anyone in Atlanta has the talent to do that just yet. But yeah, that offense has looked good. I know week 1, I was looking far, at least up here on this side of 85, and I was like, oh man, can Kirk Cousins move? And yeah, I mean, Kirk's fine. Like the win against the Eagles on that Monday night, and you're talking about like games where, as a Falcon fan, the football guys don't smile on you. You get the win in Philly, despite the guns from Drake London, and you get the win against New Orleans, who of course y'all hate, and then you get the win there last Thursday night. Like that offense is starting to cook, but the defense, I gotta imagine Raheem is not feeling too good about the defense so far, especially being a defensive guy. What's the biggest story going on with that Falcons defense that's been, like the Panthers, suspect?
Yeah. Raheem is a big proponent of stats are for losers. So as long as the Falcons win the game, he
Okay.
doesn't care about that. I don't agree with that philosophy. I'm like, you have to kind of stop teams. And I think right now the biggest story is, will the Falcons be better able to stop teams getting potentially the healthy return of linebacker Nate Landman to help bolster the run defense, really where the Falcons kind of really need it this week going up against Carolina. I think they're currently ranked 28th in run defense this year. They're going to need a boost to slow down Chuba Hubbard and this Panthers offense. I know they basically want to be able to run the football. They've been generally effective, I think, watching the games when they do hand the ball off to Chuba Hubbard. I think I saw a stat today that he's like second in the NFL behind only Jonathan Taylor in terms of rushing yards purely off of inside zone runs. And the run defense has really struggled this year dealing with inside zone, dealing with duo runs, dealing with power and counter runs. Basically, when teams just want to punch them in the mouth, run downhill football against their soft fronts when they play the nickel defense. And that's going to be something that we'll see a lot of because Carolina loves their 3 wide receiver sets. That's, I think, going to be the biggest challenge for this Falcons defense. Can they stop the run? Nate Landman is their best run defending linebacker. I don't know how big an impact his return is going to have because generally speaking, the Falcons don't like putting Nate Landman on the field in passing situations like a nickel defense is because he's limited in coverage, but they may have to kind of do that just to try to have some chance to stop this run game and potentially risk the exposure and coverage. But I think fortunately that Carolina doesn't necessarily have a elite tight end. Greg Olsen's not walking through that door to really exploit that matchup. So, maybe it's a breakout game for Jatavian Sanders or somebody like that. But I think that's really the big story. Can the Falcons stop the run this week? The answer through 5 games is no, they can't. So maybe, hope springs eternal at this point in the season.
Yeah, Panther fans have been waiting for Greg Olsen or someone to replace him to walk through this door for years. And so far, Jatavian Sanders, the early returns haven't been great. And Tommy Trimble, who's also not a pass catcher, he's in a concussion protocol. And after getting knocked out on Sunday, probably shouldn't play, but we know they're going to go through the protocol and see how that works out. And speaking of Chuba Hubbard, he is leading the NFL right now in rushing success rate. So that's one thing to look at, even though he's 15th in the league in attempts. And a lot of Panther fans want to see Chuba Hubbard get the ball more. And the Falcons defense can't stop the run. We're probably going to see more Chuba Hubbard runs on Sunday. One question I do have for you about the defense. And I know going into the season, you bring in Kirk Cousins offensively. It's okay. Let's finally be able to unlock Drake London, Kyle Pitts, see what Bijan Robinson can do in this offense with Zach Robinson calling plays. But defensively, you get Justin Simmons, you get Matthew Judon. Are you surprised just by the start by that defensive unit so far with the amount of kind of veteran names that they do have there that they also brought in late?
Yeah, it's underwhelming to say the least. I think a lot of it is owed to the Falcons really going hardcore on the bend but don't break defensive philosophy. And they're just not getting the most out of their defensive players because they just basically, we refuse to give up the explosive play. And they think they've given up the least amount of 20-plus yard plays this season in the NFL. But everything else about their defense is not particularly good. They're decent in the red zone. But outside of that, like, they're really struggling at everything else. But it's like, hey, as long as we don't give up the big play, we'll get stops or something like that. So it's worked in their favor 3 times. It hasn't worked in their favor twice so far this year. I don't think that's a long-term sustainable winning strategy of just basically like, we'll just keep bending, and we'll just wait till we get inside the 20 and then we'll force you to settle for 3 points. If the offense is clicking and they're scoring 7 and the defense is only giving up 3, again, that's probably a winning formula. You'll probably wind up winning, more games than you lose doing that, but it's not going to lead to me success long term, and especially if the Falcons have goals of making the playoffs where they're going to be facing much better offenses than, no offense, they'll probably be facing this week against the Carolina Panthers. And so like that will probably get exposed closer to January, but in the meantime, I think it will work. But I think that's a big reason why you look at the pieces on defense, you're thinking, hey, you got Grady Jarrett, you got Judon, you got Simmons, you got Bates, you got AJ Terrell, David Onyemata. this should be a pretty good defense, or at least a league average defense, and they're not getting there. And I think a lot of it is owed to a very conservative defensive philosophy.
I do appreciate you saying no offense about a Panthers offense led by Andy Dalton in the year 2024. God bless you. You are a good man, Aaron Freeman. And a good thing too.
One comment of someone who believes that this Panthers offense is the best offense in the NFL. And just wait, Locked On Falcons guy. So I say no offense for that one person.
Because someone's going to be upset about that. Because there's always some aggrieved party, even though it's like, should you really be that aggrieved about things coming off of a 10-point performance where you couldn't throw the football against the Bears? Maybe, maybe not. But as Raheem Morris says, stats are for nerds, and good thing for the Falcons are 3-2. And if they win this game on Sunday and things work out between the other divisional opponents, they'll be in first place alone in the NFC South. We talked about the Falcons portion of things here. What about the Panthers coming in at 1-4, hosting their division rivals? Can they get off the snide and win a game, or will they fall deeper into the depression that is this season in 2024? We'll talk about the Panther side of things here in just a moment here on this Locked On NFL Crossover Thursday edition of Locked On Panthers and Locked On Falcons. ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in your gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that is to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. So here's how it works. Step 1, drink pre-alcohol. Step 2, drink responsibly, or at least try. Step 3, enjoy tomorrow. Go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On NFL at checkout. ZBiotics is back with 100% money back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no question asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL at checkout for 15% off your order. Football season is back, and the best way to get to games this fall is with Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time Picks curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concert, comedy, theater, etc. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, which honestly is my favorite feature. I don't want to go to a game, now know what my view is going to be, but on Game Time, you can check it out. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Back here on this Locked On NFL Crossover Thursday edition of Locked On Panthers and Locked On Falcons. I'm Julian Council, the host of Locked On Panthers. He is Aaron Freeman, the host of Locked On Falcons. The Panthers 1-4 hosting the Falcons, who are 3-2 at 4:25 p.m. Eastern time. What on earth is going on with that game time for this game? But that's what's happening. You guys get to sleep in, enjoy your Sundays, go play a round of golf. That's what I'm doing in the morning, and then get to go out there and watch teams play at 4:25. So, Aaron, we talked about the Falcon side of things, and you looked at the offense, which was excellent. You looked at the defense that has not been excellent. The Panthers, kind of similar, except the offense hasn't really been excellent aside from one and a half, I guess 2 games, the Raiders game and the Bengals game where they did leave some points out there. And looking at the offense right now, just as far as the biggest storyline heading into this game, it's the injuries on the offensive line. And last year, the Panthers were ravaged by injuries. They had injuries coming into the season where Austin Corbett, he had torn his ACL in that Week 18 matchup at the end of 2022 season against the Saints. Brady Christensen, the starting left guard, broke his leg in that game. Corbett, unfortunately, was not ready to go last season until after the bye, after being on PUP. And when he came back, it only lasted 4 games, and that was a major issue. Christensen tore his bicep against the Falcons Week 1 last year. He was lost for the rest of the season, and that led to the Panthers starting or playing 7 different left guards, 8 different right guards. Unfortunately, they have now lost Corbett for the rest of the season with a bicep injury that he tore in the loss against Chicago on Sunday, and they're now going to try to figure out who exactly is going to play that role. It's likely going to be Brady Christensen, who was relegated to a backup at left guard with Damian Lewis being signed in the offseason. He stepped into that role in the game against Chicago on Sunday, and also played it throughout training camp and the preseason. So he's expected to be the starter. Cade Mays, who actually was with the Panthers the past 2 seasons, but then was cut at roster cutdown day back in August. He's been signed off to the Giants practice squad to come back here and be someone who can back up. Andrew Ram, who's an undrafted free agent out of Oklahoma. He's also another option for the Panthers potentially, but currently he's in concussion protocol. So they're trying to figure out the center position. And since Ryan Khalil left, the Panthers have gone through Matt Paradis, Pat Elflein, Bradley Bozeman, now Austin Corbett, and now Brady Christensen. And we'll see. It's just been a revolving door of centers. And also, it's not just that. Taylor Moton, he's also injured. And this is going to break a streak of 104 straight starts, 120 games played. He has not missed a snap until 2018. That was his streak until Sunday. Now, the concern is that obviously you have those guys down, but the Panthers are better equipped than they were last year with guys like Christensen, who started all throughout 2022, and then Yosh Nijman, who they signed in free agency to be their swing tackle, who can step in there at right tackle. So the hope is things don't fall apart, but of course, that's the hope and maybe not the reality, but I think that this should be fine. So that's what we're looking at offensively. Those guys are really banged up on the offensive line, and I don't know, does Atlanta have guys that can exploit potentially that issue up front?
Theoretically, they do. We haven't really seen it. Matthew Judon going up against a backup right tackle seems like a matchup that really favors the Atlanta Falcons. Judon has been fine this year. He's been okay, solid, but hasn't been the sort of dominant presence to sort of uplift this pass rush again. Going back to some of the issues talked about earlier with, I think, the Falcons scheme being very conservative and very passive, I think is not really allowing him. But he came on really strong in the second half of the Bucs game last Thursday. So hopefully he can pick up where he left off and really give Yosh Nijman some problems. Obviously, the Falcons have 2 good D tackles in Grady Jarrett and David Onyemata. And we saw last week, one of the few sacks the Falcons got was David Onyemata bullying rookie center Graham Barton in a critical red zone situation and in helping the Falcons force Tampa Bay to settle for a field goal, which was a big part in allowing the Falcons to come back in that game. So hopefully he can do similar things to Brady Christensen or whoever winds up starting at the center position. So again, I say theoretically the Falcons have guys that should be able to exploit these matchups, but we just haven't seen it consistently so far this year. So I can't sit here with the level of confidence that I would like to have to say, oh yes, the Falcons are absolutely going to take advantage of these backup offensive linemen this week.
Totally fair. And theoretically, the Panthers have guys on the team who can tackle, but we have not seen that at all so far this season, as this has been one of the worst defensive performances in the 30-year history of the Carolina Panthers through 5 weeks. Actually, not one of, actually the worst, as they've given up 165 points through 5 weeks. And fans have the audacity to think that, no, it's the offense. That's the reason the defense has been bad. No, guys, they gave up 9 straight scoring drives against the Saints in week 1. They couldn't stop the run against Chargers in week 2. The Raiders stink. Week 4, Joe Burrow, he's really good. Jamar Chase, he's really good, but you could still try to tackle him potentially if you want to win that game. Then last week, the Bears, they hadn't scored more than 24 points in a game the first 4 weeks. They scored 27 in the first half. So the Panthers defense, yeah, they're reeling, and that has been the topic of discussion. Are they going to be able to get things solved defensively? Looking at a lot of the injuries, Shaq Thompson, he's out for the rest of the season with a torn Achilles, and he's likely done in Carolina as he's going to be a free agent after this year. You also look at Derek Brown. He was injured, his meniscus there week 1 against the Saints. He's done for the season. Those two, plus J.C. Horn, are probably the 3 best defensive players. Not probably, definitely the 3 best defensive players on this roster. And J.C.'s played well. He did let his frustrations boil over on Sunday and get tossed from that game in Chicago. All credit to him, I suppose, for showing passion and actually caring, because I wonder sometimes if these guys really do. But you know what? They do, because Xavier Woods was yelling at the media after the win against the Raiders about, oh, you've been talking bad about our defense, and the defense has gone out there and given up 34 and 36 points in the ensuing week. So, yeah, it's totally the media's fault that you guys can't get off the field. You can't stop anybody. And like Jadeveon Clowney right now, he hurt his shoulder, did not practice on Wednesday. That actually has been a normal thing where he's been resting on Wednesdays. This is the first time this season where he was actually out due to injury. But he did say he feels like he'll be back. But we'll see. They recently signed Marquise Haynes to the practice squad, who used to be a Carolina Panther. He was banged up last year with a back injury, hoping to get some help on the edge rusher spot with him. And they signed Shaq Lawson to the practice squad as well. We'll see if those guys get elevated. Dane Jackson, who they signed for agency to be the opposite corner from J.C. Horn. He's now a full participant at practice. At least he was on Wednesday. He's trending to coming off of IR for the first time this season and making his debut. So, yeah, they've been banged up. They've also just been bad. And you look at the overall talent, there's a question of, is there talent here on the roster defensively? So, yeah, you think it's bad in Atlanta. It's bad here too, Aaron.
Yeah, the good thing in Atlanta is their best players are still healthy. And Carolina has, Derek Brown, Shaq Thompson, Clowney's beat up now. It's like
he's not one of their best players.
Well, I mean,
look, I get it. He was drafted number 1 overall way back when. He's from the area, but like, dude hasn't been a Pro Bowler since he left Houston.
Yeah.
So,
well, I point out Clowney because I'm looking at the rest of that front, and I'm just like,
who is this? I don't know who these people are.
Yeah, so I'm just
are you telling me you never heard of Thomas Incoom? You don't know who Teron Jackson is? Come on.
I know who Jadeveon Clowney is. So I sit here and I go like, yeah, I like J.C. Horn.
Well, here's a guy.
Then I look at the rest of the defense and I'm just like, I don't know what else there is to like at this point in time. And so I really hope the Falcons offense, you don't get a Kirk Cousins performance like we saw last year when he played the Carolina Panthers and threw that pick 6 at the 1 yard line or something like that. Like, yeah. I really think it's going up against this Panthers defense. It's really the Falcons that can hurt them more than Carolina can hurt them at this point in time. So as long as we just get a normal game from Kirk Cousins and not the usual chaotic game that he'll sprinkle in there every now and then, I think the Falcons offense should be fine moving the ball against this Panthers team. And it's just hard to really come up with any answer that Carolina is going to be able to throw at Atlanta that should cause enormous problems, because Derek Brown and Brian Burns were the 2 guys that really wrecked this offense over the last couple of years, and both of those guys are gone. And it's just like, okay, should be a field day, I guess.
Yeah, you would think, and it's good that you actually bring up that Kirk Cousins pick 6. The guy who had the pick 6, Sam Franklin Jr., he's actually one of the team captains. He's currently out on IR with a broken foot. That was suffered the 3rd day of training camp. And then the Vikings won that game on a big play by DJ Wonnum, who's supposed to be the other edge rusher in Carolina, but he's currently on PUP. So we have no idea when he's going to play. So that just illustrates the issues here in Carolina, talent-wise, injury-wise, and who's that guy playing defensive tackle? That's, a lot of problems here. So problems on both sides of the ball, at least for Panthers at times. And we'll see if they're able to fix things this Sunday. And we'll see if the Falcons are able to keep this thing going and find another way to win a game as they look to go to 4-2. The Panthers hope to go to 2-4. We'll talk about the 3 most important things each team must do to win here on the other side on this Locked On NFL Crossover Thursday edition of Locked On Panthers and Locked On Falcons. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And looking over at FanDuel right now at this game, it has stayed steady. The Falcons are 6.5-point favorites, -255 money line. Panthers +210 money line. And the over-under has actually gone down. It was at 47.5. It's now at 46.5. We're looking to get some more plays in this game. We've been talking about both of these defenses not being very good, especially the Panthers defense not being very good. I don't know. Falcons first half over. If you're thinking about doing that team total, I'll just throw it out there. If Falcons fans, if you lose the money, don't blame me. Either way, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Back here on this Locked On NFL Crossover Thursday presented by our friends over at Prize Picks. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Carolina Panthers are 6.5-point underdogs. The Atlanta Falcons are 6.5-point favorites. So just so no one can say, all right, you only gave the Panther side of it. I gave both. Panthers are underdogs, 6.5 points. Falcons are favorites, 6.5 points. And we're going to talk about the 3 things each team must do in order to win this game. And there's probably more than 3 things they each must do to win the game. But Aaron, please tell me, what are the 3 most important things the Falcons must do to come and beat these Panthers?
Well, I think the first thing is you got to stop the run. That to me is the Panthers' biggest weapon. And if you can do that, then I think hopefully you won't have too many problems with the rest of the Panthers offense. We'll see. I think the other thing that benefits the Falcons because they struggle to stop the run is the number 2 thing, which is get off to a fast start offensively. If you can do what the Bears did and get an early lead, you can force Carolina to kind of abandon the run on their own as they try to work back from that sort of thing. And that will be a big benefit to your defense being able to stop the run because they don't have to worry about it. And then the third thing is just play a clean football game. Going back to the point I made earlier about a chaotic Kirk Cousins, just don't turn the ball over. Don't give Carolina too many opportunities to get back into this game. And I think if you do those 3 things, you should be able to walk away with a win in Carolina, in Charlotte, even if it's going to be a typical, sweat-inducing, nail-biting Falcons late game surge or whatever the case may be. But if you check those 3 boxes, I think you should be okay against a struggling Panthers team.
Well, 3 of the boxes the Panthers need to check among the probably 29 or so boxes they need to check to win this game on Sunday. Number 1, convert on third down. Dave Canales goes over some of the factors that lead to every win or loss, and he talked about how the Panthers were 0-7 on third and manageable in that game against the Bears on Sunday, and that's not ideal. Obviously, the Panthers currently are one of the worst third down offenses in the league. But if you want to take away the first 2 weeks where Bryce Young was a quarterback, or look at the last 3 weeks, Panthers are still only converting 39.47% of their third down since Andy Dalton took over, which would actually be smack dab in the middle of the NFL at 16th, which, okay, that's much better than only converting like 28% like they were with Bryce Young, but still, they got to be able to stay on the field. And in order to run the football and take advantage of a matchup, I think they can against this Falcons defense that has really struggled to stop the run, is by being able to convert on third down and be able to keep Chuba Hubbard on the field. And also, I don't know, maybe hand the ball to Chuba Hubbard more often than they have. Number 2, you gotta get up the field on defense. They have just been awful at doing that. Speaking of third down conversion percentage, they're allowing their opponents to convert 46% of the times. That's 29th in the NFL. They're last in red zone defense. Aaron, 87.5% of the time the team gets into the red zone, they score. So if you get to the red zone, touchdown Falcons. That's what it's going to be. And they're allowing 50.9% of their opponents' drives in scoring drives. The only team that's worse, the Atlanta Falcons, allowing 52.1%. So there's probably going to be a score on every drive based off of how things have gone for both these defenses. And number 3, got to limit turnovers. This is a problem for this team last year as well, where they just got killed when it came to points off turnovers. Their turnover margin's not that bad. It's -3. It's not good, obviously. Falcons are at -1 through the first 5 weeks of the season. The Panthers have had turnovers on offense in their drives 13.6% of the times. That's 6th most in the NFL. Their opponents have 44 points off those turnovers, including 17 last week in Chicago. And Dave Canales counts turnover on downs as well. So I'm probably like subtracting 14 points that also would go towards that. The Panthers have 6 points off opponent turnovers. So 44-6, you can see that's a big scale that's being weighed. That's why they're not winning some of these games when they turn the football over. Because when they turn it over, their opponents cash in. When the opponents turn it over, which has been rare, the Panthers don't really do anything. So those are the 3 things that they must do in order to get this win on Sunday. We'll see whether that will be the case. Any final thoughts heading into this matchup on Sunday, and anything else you're looking at, Aaron?
No, I expect the Falcons to come back down a little bit to earth after their big Thursday night win. I'm hoping I'm wrong on that projection, but as long as they walk away with a win, starting off the season 3-0 in the division, sort of increasing that lead, that'll be great. So even if it is a underwhelming win, I'll take what I can get at this point with the Atlanta Falcons.
I'm expecting this to actually be a pretty high-scoring game. Like, I was surprised to see that over-under go down. I mean, if people want to take the over on FanDuel, go ahead. I probably won't be doing it, but I'm expecting points, especially looking at the last 2 games Atlanta's played. And I get Carolina didn't play well against the Bears, but the Bears are the first good defense that they've faced with Andy Dalton. The Raiders don't have a good defense. The Bengals, their defense is not good either. We just saw like Joe Burrow did everything he could to try and win that game on Sunday. They could not stop the Ravens, and Lamar is excellent. Totally understand that. This is not a good defense they're facing, and I think they're going to have an opportunity to be able to run the ball and see if those receivers can get open. I know Deontay Johnson, he's struggling with an ankle injury. He was limited to practice on Wednesday. Xavier Legette had a shoulder injury, but he was actually out there, I believe, as a full participant on Wednesday. So that's positive. Adam Thielen's still on IR, going to miss at least the next 2 games. So I'm expecting points. 425, A lot of eyes going to be on this game. Can't let it be a boring game. I don't think it's going to be a boring game at all. It should be interesting as the Falcons and the Panthers get it going here at Bank of America Stadium in Uptown Charlotte. But it's going to wrap up this edition of Locked On Panthers and Locked On Falcons, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, a Locked On NFL Crossover Thursday, presented again by our friends over at PrizePicks. I'm Julian Council. He is Aaron Freeman. He's the host of Locked On Falcons. I'm the host of Locked On Panthers. Check us out tomorrow, either on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, as we'll continue to break down this Week 6 matchup against these NFC South division rivals. So all that coming up here on Locked On Panthers and Locked On Falcons on Friday's show. In the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole, and we will talk to you